Hello everyone, my name is Luna August and I'll be guiding you through today's lesson. And I'm not just your dramatic arts teacher, I'm also a drama graduate, I'm a theatre maker, and I am also someone who has spent years exploring how performance reflects the times that we live in. So in today's video, we're going to unpack one of the most fascinating and unusual movements in 20th century theatre, and that is theatre of the absurd. Now, theatre of the absurd isn't just the kind of theatre where you can sit back and watch a neat story unfold with a clear beginning, middle, and end. It's theatre that reflects confusion, despair, and humor all tangled together. It's theatre born out of crisis, created by artists who were looking at a world devastated by war and asking, what does it even mean to live? And that's why in your grade 12 curriculum, you need to understand this movement. You're not just memorizing facts when you do so, you are actually grappling with big human questions that still matter today. So let's dive in. And the first slide is on who started this movement. So, when we talk about theatre of the absurd, we're really talking about a group of European dramatists who emerged after the Second World War. Think of the devastation of that time. Millions were dead, cities were bombed to rubble, the Holocaust fresh in memory, and the atomic bomb showing humanity's capacity to destroy itself completely. And against this backdrop, the old styles of theatre, plays with neat plots, rational dialogue, and clear moral lessons just didn't make sense anymore. Writers like Samuel Beckett with Waiting for Godot and also Endgame, as well as Eugene Ionesco with The Chairs and The Bold Soprano, and Jean Genet with plays like The Balcony, started to create plays that reflected this new world of chaos and meaninglessness. Their work wasn't labeled as absurd at first, that came later when critic Martin Esslin published his 1961 book, The Theatre of the Absurd. Es- Esslin gave a name to what audiences were already experiencing. They were experiencing a strange, unsettling form of theatre that seemed to reflect a world gone mad. Now, these playwrights didn't invent their ideas in isolation. They drew on earlier movements which you also studied in your dramatic arts grade 12 journey at the start of term 1. The first of which is Dadaism with its nonsense, symbolism with its dreamlike imagery, surrealism with its irrational juxtapositions, and of course existentialism, which relies on the philosophy of Sartre and Camus, especially Camus, who argued that life is absurd. We search for meaning, but the universe gives us none. His famous metaphor of Sisyphus, who endlessly pushed a rock up a hill only for it to roll down again, perfectly captures this philosophy. Absurdist theatre took that idea and said, let's put it on stage. Now, when you hear the word absurd, you might think silly, you might think ridiculous, or you might think laughable. And that's particularly true. But in this theatrical sense, absurd actually goes deeper. It's about the confrontation between our desire for order and meaning and the chaos and randomness of existence. Absurdist plays are funny at times, yes, but they are also disturbing. You'll laugh at the ridiculous repetition of dialogue, only to realize you're actually watching characters who are stuck in hopeless cycles. It's the laughter that catches in your throat. And that's what absurd means here. It means tragic, it means comic, it means ridiculous, and it means profound all at the same time. Theatre of the Absurd isn't here to give you neat answers or comforting morals. It's here to show life as it is, confused, repetitive, and often meaningless. And when traditional theatre aimed to reflect life realistically or tell a story with a moral arc, absurdist plays often feel like allegories of the human condition. The characters don't really develop, they just endure. The plots don't resolve, they go in circles, and the settings aren't specific. They are barren, they are dreamlike, and they are grotesque. It's not about realism, which you learned in grade 11, by the way. It's about truth. A truth that says life doesn't make sense all the time, and theatre should reflect that. It's impossible to understand absurdism without this historical context. Imagine being in Europe in 1945, two world wars in a generation, the Holocaust revealing horrors beyond imagination, the Hiroshima atomic bomb, and at Nagasaki, proving that technology could wipe out entire cities in seconds. What also happened in Europe after World War II is that people lost faith in governments, in progress, in religion, and in humanity itself. And that sense of despair and disillusionment is the soil in which absurdist theatre grew. Samuel Beckett himself once said that he wrote not because he had answers, but because he couldn't stay silent in the face of despair. And that's something very powerful because absurdism, in many ways, is an artistic response to faith. Faith in God, faith in reason, and also faith in human beings. So, why did this movement begin? This movement began because the old ways of making theatre felt dishonest. Because how could you write a play with a neat beginning, middle, and end after Auschwitz? And if you don't know what Auschwitz is the concentration camp that millions of Jews were sent to during the Holocaust. How could you put a hero on stage when the world had just witnessed mass slaughter and the threat of nuclear annihilation? Theatre, of course, then had to change, and so absurdist playwrights decided instead of making life makes sense, or instead of pretending life makes sense, let's embrace the nonsense. Let's put the confusion, the emptiness, and the repetition of modern life right there on stage. That honesty, that refusal to sugarcoat, is what made this movement so radical. So then, how did the playwrights respond? Their response was to break almost every convention of traditional theatre. Characters became hollow, clown like figures, lost, pathetic, going through empty routines. The set design was often stripped away of everything. Think of Beckett's Waiting for Godot, which is the play that you are studying in this movement, in case you forgot, where the stage is bare except for a single withered tree. If you look further or study further into Eugene Ionesco's The Chairs, the opposite happens. The stage fills with endless chairs, cluttering the space to a point of absurdity. And both approaches make the same point. The world is strange, incomprehensible, and overwhelming. In terms of dialogue, which is the words that the performers use, or the words that is used for the performers to interact with each other, dialogue within theatre of the absurd is also transformed, because instead of clever exchanges, you get cliches, you get repetitions, you get nonsensical phrases, and you get long, very uncomfortable silences. Words, instead of connecting people, reveal how cut off they are from one another. And plots, they don't really go anywhere. They circle back, they repeat, or they spiral down into despair. So everything, my learned friends, the characters, the sets, the language, was used to reflect humanity's confusion and futility. So then how did audiences react to this plays? Absurd displays can be frustrating to watch. Audiences often left the theatre saying, nothing happened. What was the point? And that's exactly the point. The plays don't hand you meaning on a plate. They force you to confront the lack of meaning. You sit there as an audience member, uncomfortable, laughing at nonsense, then realizing you're actually laughing at yourself and at the human condition. And that discomfort is powerful because it pushes audiences to question their own assumptions about life, about theatre, about communication. It makes you feel the absurdity, not just think about it. Then the final slide I want to take you through, my learned friends, is the elements of drama in theatre of the absurd. In terms of set and setting, for your exam, you must remember that absurdist sets were often stripped down or surreal. In Godot, for example, it's an empty stage with one tree. Uh, in the chairs, the in the play, The Chairs, let me rephrase that, the stage becomes overcrowded with furniture, and both extremes highlight emptiness and futility. When you think about the themes, because I can guarantee you in every drama exam you are going to be asked to reflect on the themes of a play, the themes are universal, and that is the search for meaning, the passing of time, the breakdown of communication, loneliness, and the absence of God. These aren't small local issues, they are existential in nature, and they ask existential questions about the human condition. When you think about language and dialogue within an absurdist play, language doesn't work in these plays. Characters talk, but don't really communicate. They repeat themselves, they speak in cliches, or they drift into nonsense syllables. And silences are often more powerful than words. If you look at uh, Eugene Ionesco's The Bold Soprano, that's a perfect case study. Polite conversation slowly collapses into gibberish. And then finally, I want to reflect on the plot, the storyline. When you're working with an absurdist play, forget beginning, middle, and end. No, that doesn't exist in an absurdist play. Absurdist plots are circular, like Waiting for Godot, where the second act repeats the first act, or they spiral downwards, as in Endgame, which is another uh, Samuel Beckett play, where everything winds towards finality. Either way, there's no resolution. The story just continues or ends in emptiness. So, my learned friends, as I end this video, when you are studying absurdist theater, don't just memorize definitions. Try to feel what it meant for those artists to create in a world that had lost its sense of meaning. Absurdism isn't about answers, it's about the courage to stage the lack of answers. And for your exam, remember to always link the elements of drama within absurdist plays back to context. Why are the characters hollow? Because they reflect the post war humanity. Why is the language nonsensical? Because communication itself was breaking down. And why are the plots circular? Because life itself felt repetitive and unresolved. And that's the richness of theatre of the absurd. It mirrors the world and at its most confusing and asks us, what will you make of it? And my learned friends, that brings me to the end of this little micro lecture on what Theatre of the Absurd is. In the next video, I'll be taking you through a study of Waiting for Godot, which is the absurdist play that you study for your dramatic arts exam. Until the next video, I'll see you then, and share this video with your teachers so that they can share it with other drama teachers, and share this video with your classmates so that the movement builds. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.